Just like any other programming language, JavaScript has dozens of neat little tricks that you could start using today. Here are some JavaScript tips to write more concise and more performant code that will make you a better developer. Let's start with the every function. You can use this function if you want to know whether all elements of an array pass a certain test. Take a look at the following example. The every function returns a boolean. If all elements in the array pass the test, true will be returned. If one of the elements in the array fails the test, false will be returned. You could also use an anonymous function as a tester function if you'd like to. The sum function almost works exactly the same as the every function. There's only one major difference. The sum function tests whether at least one element in the array passes the test implemented. If we take a look at this example and use the sum function instead of the every function, both arrays will return true, since both arrays contain a positive number. Conditionally setting a variable is both easy and makes your code look more elegant. There's no need to write an if statement when applying this trick. This code looks so much cleaner than when using an if statement. In this example, we check if the user has a preferred time zone. If the user has a preferred time zone, we use that time zone. If the user doesn't have a preferred time zone, we use the default time zone, which is America, New York. Sometimes you want to cast all values in an array. One of those occurrences could be when you're using the triple equals operator to check whether a certain number exists in an array. For example, the HTML values of a multi-select options are strings instead of integers. The array of selected values looked like selected values variable. The prettiest solution is to cast all values in the array to an integer. You could also cast all values in the array to a boolean by simply changing the argument of the map function. Once you know about object destructuring, it's probably something that you're going to be using every single day. But what exactly is destructuring? Destructuring is a JavaScript expression that allows you to extract data from arrays, objects, maps, and sets into their own variable. It allows you to extract properties from an object or items from an array, multiple at a time. Let's take a look at the following example where we have a user object. If you want to store the user's name in a variable, you have to assign it to a variable on a new line. And if you want to store the gender as well in a variable, you'd have to do the same again. With destructuring, you can directly get the variables for the object's properties using the following syntax. The setObjectType was introduced in ES6, and along with the spread operator, we can use it to create a new array with only the unique values. Before ES6, isolating unique values would involve a lot more code than that. This trick works for arrays containing primitive types, undefined null boolean string and number. If you had an array containing objects, functions, or additional arrays, you'd need a different approach. Besides the regular boolean values true and false, JavaScript also treats all other values as either truthy or falsy. Unless otherwise defined, all values in JavaScript are truthy with the exception of 0 empty string null undefined not a number and of course false, which are falsy. We can easily switch between true and false by using the negative operator, which will also convert the type to boolean. To quickly convert a number to a string, we can use the concatenation operator plus followed by an empty set of quotation marks. Converting a string to number can be quickly achieved using the addition operator plus. This may also be used to convert booleans to numbers. Since ES7, it has been possible to use the exponentiation operator as a shorthand for powers, which is faster than writing math.pow. This shouldn't be confused with the caret symbol, commonly used to represent exponents, but which in JavaScript is the bitwise XOR operator. If you want to convert a float to an integer, you can use math.floor, math.ceil, or math.round. But there is also a faster way to truncate a float to an integer using the bitwise OR operator. The behavior of bitwise OR operator varies depending on whether you're dealing with positive or negative numbers, so it's best only to use this shortcut if you're sure. If n is positive, n bitwise OR 0 effectively rounds down. If n is negative, it effectively rounds up. To put it more accurately, this operation removes whatever comes after the decimal point, truncating a float to an integer. Any bitwise operator would force a float to an integer. The reasons these particular operations work is that, once forced to an integer, the value is left unchanged. The bitwise OR operator can also be used to remove any amount of digits from the end of an integer. This means we don't have to use code like this to convert between types. Instead, the bitwise OR operator allows us to write. If you want to remove values from the end of an array destructively, there are some alternatives than using splice. If you know the size of your original array, you can redefine its length property, like so. The array method slice can take negative integers, and if provided it will take values from the end of the array rather than the beginning. Did you realize JSON.stringify it can also help indent your JSON for you? The stringify method takes two optional parameters, a replacer function, which you can use to filter the JSON that is displayed, and a space value. The space value takes an integer for the number of spaces you want or a string, such as \t, to insert tabs, and it can make it a lot easier to read fetched JSON data.